I have found a few comic book projects that have piqued my interest, both with unpronounceable, unspellable names, Eudaimonia and Tadhya, and then the other one's called Orgasm Girl. For me, this unpronounceable stuff is just an absolute no-go. You want to make things as easy as possible for the reader. When most of us come across words with unfamiliar pronunciations, these words have a hard time sticking in our minds. It's a problem a lot of people have with fantasy books, besides the fact that they are insanely overwritten. Most fantasy books could easily be cut in half, but also that fantasy books have a lot of overly complicated nomenclature, bizarro spellings that sound otherworldly, and I guess they do, but they're a pain in the neck for the reader. But fantasy writers, who are probably stoned out of their minds when they write, they think it makes the story sound more authentic. Anyway, so I saw these 3 comics. One is openly Comicsgate, and the other 2 haven't made any comment about it either way. But like I said, Comicsgate is just social justice warrior free comics where you respect the customer. If you don't want to raise the Comicsgate flag because you're not a fan of EVS, well, EVS isn't the boss of Comicsgate. I am. In fact, if Comicsgate means respecting the customers, well, didn't we get mad at all the pussy SJWs who were mass blocking people? There's a hashtag on Twitter going around about all the people that EVS has blocked. Does anyone have an issue with that? Some people were fans of EVS and they don't understand why they were blocked. It seems like Comicsgate has changed so much since its inception. Is Comicsgate even Comicsgate anymore? You had EVS defending War Campaign for a long time, even though people were saying how they were harassing people. So the people getting harassed started forming their own groups. Then the harassment continued, but as long as it was against EVS's purported enemies, who I'm not exactly sure why Edwin, Mike, Tristan, Nurkish, Comic Book Hut, Captain Cummings, Sashi, Tim Lim, and a dozen other people, what exactly they did to be his most hated enemies. And there's just so many of them. It's really weird. And Doug Tenaple, who actually may be onto something. His immunity system is probably pretty strong by now. He has sentient life forms living under his fingernails. But for some reason, EVS got his panties in a bunch and decided a bunch of his former friends are now evil Nazis. And then War Campaign went after Anna. And here's the thing. I like a lot of guys in War Campaign. I follow them, they follow me. But I think it's the peak of autistic bundles of stickery to meme Tim Lim and the rest of these guys for months on end. It's boring and gay. It's really, really gay. Tim Lim is just a nice guy. He is just a normie selling bunny books. And honestly, I think if a lot of the guys in War Campaign knew what Tim was all about, they would find out that they have more similarities than differences. But they don't put down this non-stop fighting to actually learn about those things. Anyway, this fighting, it's something that children do. Slow children. But I also support War Campaign's right, and all of our rights, to make fun of the Vampirella cover. I liked it. But Comicsgate is about roasting stuff we don't like. You're able to, you should, yes, Comicsgate absolutely roast Vampirella, roast Cyberfrog, roast anything you want. That's 100% cool. And I will always defend your right to do that. But then they were seriously mad that her cover got pushed by Comicsgate. Well, why? Comicsgate is about helping friends. If you help Anna, she will help you. And if she doesn't, then that's where I would agree with you. But that's another discussion for the future. But then some members in War Campaign were talking about a tragedy in her family, and I am assuming the guys who did that are mentally ill, either sociopathic tendencies or borderline personality disorder. Something is wrong with your brain if you think that that is acceptable behavior. I don't care if it's Mark Waid, Renfamous, Tim Doyle. Making fun of a death in the family is not something normal, mentally healthy people do. But I don't really blame the few people who did that, because they probably don't have the mens rea to know that the act is evil in and of itself. But what I don't understand is why the other members of War Campaign didn't tell those guys to choke on a fat cock and shut the fuck up. I'm not even saying cancel them permanently. You just got to take them aside in a DM and tell them, hey, we don't make fun of a family tragedy. It's not something we do. And if you don't find a lot of support for calling out truly reprehensible behavior, then I would probably wonder why I had a WC after my Twitter name. Oh, but Bianca, aren't you pro free expression? Didn't you defend Nurkish's Discord? Absolutely. World War II edgy boy humor from 80 years ago versus making fun of a person who is alive right now, a real person who hangs out in our association. Yeah, there's no comparison. And like I said, most guys in War Campaign, I like them. And I guess the issue was that a lot of it was coming from Ro, who is one of the main guys. He's got the biggest channel. And he's got a fun D-Live channel. He's a lot of fun. But, so what? Friends tell friends when to drop something and move on. You don't blindly defend someone just because of who they are. I like almost everyone in or associated with Comicsgate, but I don't blindly defend people. That cartoon for Cash Grab where Mike is just repeatedly punching himself in the face, yeah, I've said there's a lot of truth to that. Because there's a lot of truth to that. Sorry, Mike. Oh, these three guys who worked on this cover. One is Mike Miller, who's fantastic. Weldon, I'm not as familiar with, and Kane and White. So those three guys are actually all three top-notch artists. They're all very good. My point was that Comicsgate is more than just EVS, because it seems like EVS himself is less and less Comicsgate these days. That doesn't mean I hate EVS or Ro, but it's okay to mention when you think a group needs a course correction. I don't think anyone needs to fight in Comicsgate, at least not for more than a few weeks. Fight, drop it, and move on, and don't go back to it. I want to see all of us come together under the original dogma of Comicsgate. SJW Free Comics, respect the customers. I think EVS is the source of a lot of problems, but I don't think it's anything that can't be fixed. Hey, E, stop being an asshole for 6 months. Problem solved. I want all the people around Comicsgate to sit at the same table. High chairs and chopsticks for Mike Miller and Tim Lim. Reinforced chairs for Donald DeLay, Antonio Bryce, EVS, Angleteen, and all the other fatties in Comicsgate. Watching adult men fight over petty bullshit is gayer than if you just started blowing each other. You're fighting over nothing and you're effing yourself in the A. Work together and make money. It's all about the Benjamins, baby. Comicsgate should be huge by now. Diversity in Comics, EVS should both be at 300,000 subs. Cyberfrog 2 should be at 5 million. Without the fighting, it probably would be. Because Ethan is very talented. It's like the elephant in the room that everyone's afraid to mention because they want EVS to sell their book. If you think I don't like EVS because I lightly criticize him, I just got done saying he should have 3 times the numbers he has now, because when he isn't bitterly attacking his old friends, he is insanely funny. That dude is a legitimate talent. If you were involved in Comicsgate 2 years ago, there's a saying from the 90s about, I think it was about NBC when Friends and Seinfeld and whatever was on. They called it must-see TV, which is a bit cheesy, but believe it or not, there was a time period when his channel, his show, when he had his old crew on, you would look forward to that. It was must-see internet. It's like what they're doing now is just like if you weren't there 2 years ago, you have no idea how funny it was. It was a party. People come home, crack a beer, smoke a J, make dinner, and you listen to Comicsgate stuff, and it was amazing. Anyway, you can't be funny and bitter at the same time. It's like watching somebody spin their back tires in the mud when all they got to do is put it in 4 low. You don't have to love everyone you work with. If everyone came together, all the people who fell away from Comicsgate over the years, JDA, Tim, Doug, Nerd Wonder, the I Love Comics crew, and all the other people, if they just decided to stop fighting and work together, Comicsgate would be unstoppable, especially now when mainstream comics are so bad. In case you're not aware, mainstream comics have accelerated their anti-people of the light racism. Trump derangement syndrome, the Wu flu, the Antifa BLM riots have pushed them over the edge. That is a very, very excuse my degeneracy, but I really like upskirt shots. I think they're very, very sexy. So I saw this HBO Max comic, but I saw that your boy already covered it. That comic was one of the worst I have seen in a long time. And then I saw Swamp Thing 8. Let me just finish up the YouTube. I do these YouTube Bitchute videos where I do them at the same time, but for YouTube I just clip off the Bitchute part because YouTube is not friendly to speaking truth to power. Anyway, so there's these 3 comic book projects that I looked at that look really, really solid. And never mind. This is Orgasm Girl by, I forget her name, Daphne or Daphne or something. And she's not Comicsgate, but she just seems like a nice, normal person who's putting out a fun comic book project. But the other one, yeah, it's just cute. I talked about this last time. I said, hey, you should do some, get on some live streams with some CG people. And she's trying to stay out of it. Whatever. I don't know anything more than that. But, a good project's a good project. Though I understand people who are CG only. That's an interesting point. Anyway, so you get these 3 projects. And this is actually from the 90s film with the guys, the South Park guys who did, they made like 4 movies. Cannibal, the musical, Orgasmo, and they made the cartoon, the South Park cartoon. Then they made what was the other one? I don't remember. Anyway, so this is a kind of a meeting of the 2 worlds between the Orgasmo guy and whatever the chick's name is. Very cute. And this is this other comic, the Eudaimonia. So the first time, I think his first book, this is the second one, I think got to like $2,000. I don't know if it went forward. I guess it did. So now this is coming up on $5,000. Looks like a fun project, and it's a World War I project, which is a little bit different. It's got fantastic art. That's just stunning watercolors. That's the last one. Anyway, so that 12 minutes. That's the YouTube stuff. Now the BitChute stuff.